everybody. It's Tony George along with Griff Murphy from DocSports.com. Welcome to the hottest handicapping show on the internet, found anywhere. We dare you. Unbeaten last week, almost 60, right around 69% against the spread on the year for an 80-game sample size. Griff, we're showing ourselves up with our premium plays because we're hitting damn near 70% over a 12-week period on the show. That is an amazing feat. And of course, you're a rookie. This is your first year on the show. So,
I know,
wow,
man.
what a week last week, huh?
Oh yeah, we had a week, man, 6-0, or it was 5-0-1, depending. I would hope that the majority of people did catch that Chargers line at the -4.5, because obviously that thing, we got it on Wednesday at 6, and obviously they ripped that game up 6-0. So what a week, man! Feeling great. We said it last week on the show. We said that the slate looks beautiful, feeling good. We came out ready to play.
Yeah, before we get to this week's show, obviously, folks, it's bowl season in college football. I just we're going to have some sort of a bowl show. What it is, I have no idea yet. Griffin and I haven't talked about it. He's coming to town tomorrow, so maybe tomorrow night we get together for some libations and we talk about it.
Sounds
We'll come up with something inventive, but the Final Four has been set. You called it last week, Griff. Before we get to the free picks, you called Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
They go 13-0 and they win a conference championship, and they're left out of the mix. And of course, Bama beats Georgia, jumps from 8th to 4th. Georgia drops off the map. I think it's interesting that all four teams in front of Georgia, if they played them on a neutral site, which it would be, they'd be favored against all four teams. And yet they're sitting there. Just your quick thoughts on, did Florida State get hosed, or are they just not any good?
Well, no, they have one of the best defenses, Tony, that I have ever seen put to the test. I mean, they were so explosive in and out that entire game. When I was watching that game, did I question the committee the entire game, saying, well, if they're going to have Glenn at quarterback, how are they really going to beat any of these top teams? So when I really looked over it, and when the committee finally came out and Florida didn't get in, was I disappointed? Yes, because when you're asking for a Power 5 team to come in and absolutely clean up everything that they've been asked to this far this season, they've been put to the test. They went 13-0 unbeaten. What more can you ask from a football team, whether they had a quarterback who had a broken leg or not? It's all besides the point. But really being realistic with how they went about it, yeah, Tony, I don't think Florida State would have been able to compete with any of these top four teams right now if we went down to it without Jordan Travis and Roadmaker at that quarterback spot.
Well, in 3 weeks, Roadmaker, be ready. Number two is, I disagree with you from the fact that I agree with you, but then I disagree with your end point.
Okay.
Sitting with the third string quarterback, they did everything that was asked of them. I agree with you there. And they won a conference championship with a third string quarterback. If there's not a team in the Final Four that could have won a conference championship with a third string quarterback. No. Florida State did it, and their second stringer, who, by the way, is a 5-star recruit that everybody in the country was after, will be back for concussion protocol. Hell, he would have been back this week. Thank God we have a 12-team playoff next year. That's for sure.
And I broke that down, Tony, as well, because I really looked at it and I went through the entire cycle. I'm like, say this year was that 12-team playoff, and obviously your 1 and 2 seed are going to get buys. So you'd have 3 versus 12. I dissected this entire slate, and any single one of these teams can compete with each other, let alone win. That 12-ranked team can beat that 3rd-ranked team. Washington, I want to say right now, is ranked 3rd. Absolutely could they get beat up. I think Mizzou's right now in that 12 spot. I looked at that, and Thank God. I cannot wait for next season because I think this whole 4-team playoff is it's too light of teams. There's not enough teams that get in. And just like the circumstances we just saw with Florida State, the only reason they didn't get in was because they played Louisville in the title championship. If it was any other top prime team, they would have got in. But Louisville has no NFL recruits. They don't have really anything to go off of. And again, Plummer, just as I mentioned, what did he do? He can't handle the big game. Starts throwing picks, starts making irrational decisions. And long story short, going backwards to Florida State, yes, they really did get bent over by the committee, but at the same time, Tony, it's one of those things that I think they looked at it and said, hey, listen, next year we'll have 12 teams going into it. Let's just cut this off this season and move forward on to the next.
Outside of the top 4, and if you were playing 12, so number 5 through number 12, there ain't none of them 5 through 12 that want to play Liberty either.
Rolling.
Yeah, unbelievable job by Liberty this year. They were expected maybe to finish second, and new head coach, but what a job by Liberty. And fantastic, an interesting college football season to say the least. And folks, before we get to the picks here, I want to tell you something if you're not paying attention. It's going to be a very tricky bowl season because of this transfer portal and the NIL money and players sitting out because of that, because of going to the NFL draft. You're going to want to do your homework in college this year for the bowl games. You know, Ohio State's quarterback's in the portal now. You know, this, that, and the other. So there's a lot of Williams is sitting out for USC.
Yep.
So you want to be careful this bowl season. Be sure and get over to Docs for those bowl packages. Take $60 off of them. You see the link in the right here on the page here. Get a free $60. Never been a member. And let's get to the picks now this week. We're going to do a couple of college games and the rest NFL. It's kind of a funky week. We are going to talk about the Army-Navy game, but first we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos headed to the LA Chargers. You have the Sean Payton versus Let's Go Brandon Staley Bowl here. So the coaching matchup definitely goes to Denver. And interesting last week as the Chargers are laying 2.5, total 43.5. Chargers last week in a 6-0 win were out-yarded per play on offense by the Patriots, who can't do anything. They can't hit a bull in the ass, a handful of rocks on offense. And now you've got kind of a, you know, Denver had numerous chances in that Houston game last week. You know, this is a team that if we'd have been talking about this as a tight ball game after the 70 points they got lit up for against Miami, who'd have thought Denver would be in this spot where they're still in the conversation as being a playoff team after the start that they had, and Sean Payton has done a great job there. Your thoughts on this game at SoFi?
Yeah, Tony, I'll open up right away with this Chargers team. I mean, being 5-7 on the season. Right now, they are 2-4 at home. And the Chargers, prior to last week winning that matchup 6-0 against the Patriots, they had dropped 3 straight games, allowing at least 20 points per game on the defensive side. Right now, this Chargers team's defense is currently ranked dead last in the NFL in total offensive yards given up against. The Chargers right now have some wins against some of the worst teams in all of the NFL, and that's against the Vikings, the Bears, and the Jets. The Chargers right now really defensively and offensively have no options. I am not impressed by any means with this New England Patriots. Yes, they have a good defense, but really scoring 6 points against them, that's absolutely brutal. And you look at this team with this Chargers offensively, and I've mentioned it week in, week out, they really do have all the tools offensively to be a legitimate team with Eckler in the backfield, with Herbert at that quarterback spot. They have weapons across their entire wide receiver core. They're a very good team on paper. They just can't piece the puzzles together. And then you go back to the Denver Broncos right now. And right, Denver did just drop that loss, but That came down to a goal line stand where they were pushed to, what was that final? I believe it was a 17-22 final. I was actually laying 3 points with Houston in that matchup, so I did watch the entire game. And I got to say, Denver really has pieced that puzzle together. They're playing very good football. Prior to that loss last week, they were on a 5-game winning streak, and they were beating legitimate teams like the Chiefs and the Bills. They've really exposed themselves as, hey, we're here to play. Now they're playing 500 football. Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, they're really kind of piecing this puzzle together. Originally, we thought, hey, Sean Payton, this may have been a bust type of play. Well, hold your horses here now, winning 5 straight games. And a lot of people could have mixed opinions when it comes to, well, did that loss against Houston kind of deteriorate the momentum of this team? Absolutely not. They had Houston pushed on their backs. They were done. It was 3rd and goal for Denver to win this ball game. And yes, Russell Wilson was left out of choices. What was he going to do? He had to air the ball out. It was 3rd and, I want to say, 13, and he ended up throwing a pick. Do I disgrace him for throwing that pick? Absolutely not. You air the ball out and you do what you could do. He had nowhere to go with it, but I really love the way that this offense has really formed together with Sutton and Russell Wilson, and then Sean Payton really filling up this entire puzzle for this Denver Broncos team. I think they got the wrong team favored in this matchup. I'm not going to give you guys the money line on the Denver Broncos, but I am taking the points with Denver. Right now, I have it sitting at +3. It keeps shifting from 2.5 to 3. My play going into this game right now, Tony, is taking Denver with the points in this matchup. Tony?
If you don't have Denver in a teaser, you're out of your mind. Just
I love
FYI.
it. I love it. Shifting gears now, let's head over. Indianapolis Colts are rolling into Cincinnati. Cincinnati is getting 1.5 points in this game. The total is currently sitting at 40.5. This game will kick off Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch it on CBS. Indy coming into this game on a 4-game winning streak behind Gardner Minshew. And I've got to say, Indy's on the road in this matchup. They're currently 5-1 on the road this season. They play their best football on the road. And then you look at this Cincinnati team. Well, hold up a second. Jake Browning, this guy's passed for over 650 yards in just 2.5 games. He kind of looks like Joe Burrow in the pocket. No. Am I saying that him and Joe Burrow are equivalent quarterbacks? Absolutely not. But does he kind of sound the Cincinnati Bengals offense? Kind of in my eyes. I don't think right now the Cincinnati team is out of it by any means. And I think he has a potential possibility to keep their playoff hopes alive. Tony, what's your take rolling into this matchup with Cincinnati getting 1.5 points in this game?
Yeah, here you just take Cincinnati and put them in a teaser with Denver. There's a winner, chicken frickin' dinner right there. Number 2 is Minshew last week, 26 out of 42 for 312 and 2 TDs against a pretty decent Titans defense. He's playing good ball. And then you look at Browning. Well, why wouldn't he have a good night or a good day? He's surrounded by weapons. Now you got a 1-2 punch at running back. Did you see Chase Brown last week at running back? Backing up Joe Mixon, 9 carries for 61. Plus you got Mixon. Plus you got Higgins and Boyd and Chase, and you got a good tight end. You got a good offensive line. This total's jumped up, and you said 40.5. It's up to 42. Give me the over. This is going to be an over game. Now check the weather to make sure it's not crappy weather. But this is a live home dog. I'd rather put him in a teaser, because Indianapolis has shown a propensity to give everybody a ball game on the road. They beat the Ravens on the road, for crying out loud. I mean, so you got to be careful, bucking them on the road. But Cincinnati's got a lot of confidence knocking off Jacksonville. That was a legitimate win. Bear in mind that Trevor Lawrence went out way late. They did lose Kirk, in the beginning, 3rd play of the game. I had Kirk on over receiving yards, 49.5. His one and only catch was 26 yards. It was the 3rd play of the game, and he gets hurt. And that was a costly game for Jacksonville injury-wise, I might add. But just FYI this week with the Jaguars, they've got a lot of guys injured, including their quarterback. But I will take the over in this game. I think there'll be plenty of scoring, barring we don't have 20-mile-an-hour winds and snow or sleet.
Right.
So be sure any time this year in the NFL, folks, about Friday night, Saturday morning, when the weather forecasts are more accurate, you want to look and see what that scenario is, because it's going to affect some games this week in the upper Midwest and the northern seaboard on the Atlantic side. Let's switch gears to, well, first of all, this game here, breaking news out of NFL Network. The NFL Insider's lead story today. No, it wasn't Mike McCarthy having an appendectomy, emergency appendix surgery today, where he may or may not coach in the biggest game of the weekend. The lead story was the fact that Zach Wilson is starting for the New York Jets. Yep. Who gives a rat's ass? Unbelievable. That means just they're going to suck worse. The Trevor Siemian experience didn't help. Go down the list of the guys. Boyle didn't work.
Right.
Even Rodgers is thrown in the towel after all the banter about I'm coming back from an Achilles injury after 3 months. I've seen my Charmin down there in a tent eating mushrooms, and he said I could play. Whatever Rodgers' narrative is this week, he's even thrown in the towel on the Jets. They're taking on Houston, who had another win.
Yep.
They hang around in games. They find ways to win. C.J. Stroud is Rookie of the Year. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He is putting up unreal numbers. Now, they did lose their wide receiver, Dell, last week. There's a very young team. Their coach is going to win Coach of the Year. I hope so. I got a 4-1 future sticking on him. But nonetheless, they're on the road here laying 6.5. Total, here we go, 33.5. Your thoughts, Griff?
The weirdest thing in this game is the total, Tony, because when you really break this game down, are they expecting the Jets to actually score points? Because this Jets team hasn't scored more than 14 points in 7 weeks. In 7 games, this New York Jets team has not scored more than 14 points. Whether it's Boyle at the quarterback spot, whether it's Wilson, it does not matter. They have the worst offense I have ever seen. And I love this thing that we keep talking about, Tony, and you really got me on this bandwagon with DeMeco Ryans as the Coach of the Year. I love DeMeco Ryans. I think I think he is the Coach of the Year this year. But I wasn't there starting the season. And as this season progressively went on, and as this show went on, I've really followed him. And I got to tell you, he outcoached last week in that victory against Denver. He outcoached Sean Payton to win that ball game, hands down. Defensive stand, they were there. He was locked in. And now going to this breakdown with C.J. Stroud. This guy is the NFL quarterback Rookie of the Year. He's passed for over 20 touchdowns on the season. He's got 5 picks and over 3,500 yards in the air. Does it kill that Tank Dell was carted off the field? Absolutely. A young stud wide receiver who that was his go-to guy. They were really connecting, and Tank Dell was really making a name for himself. So that was really a heartbreaking thing to see. Right. Do I think that's going to slow down this Texans offense? I do not. Pierce is in the backfield. Singletary has been really handling the load. Their defense is playing very good football. Their offense is playing very good football. And then once again, you go back to this Jets team. They have no answers on the offensive side whatsoever. Their star player is Garrett Wilson, who is a wide receiver, but he's got nobody who could throw the ball to him. We went from Boyle. Now we're back to Wilson. We were with Wilson. We went to Boyle. They're all over the map. This team is officially deciding, in my eyes, putting Zach Wilson out there saying, hey, we're throwing the towel on this season. Let's give the youngster some snaps. Let's get him rolling in this season. So potentials for his future in his career could open up. But right now, Tony, I don't know why Houston's only laying 4 points in this game. Give me Houston and laying the 4 points in this matchup all day. I think Houston blows this Jets team out. But switching gears now over to the Army versus Navy matchup. This game will kick off Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And you can watch this on CBS. Last year, these two teams went to war. Army took that game in a 2017 final. This year, though, for Navy, they've been brutal in my eyes. Their offense has been a complete joke. Army's kind of rolling right now. They've won 3 straight games. They beat in their most 3 recent games. They beat Air Force, Holy Cross, and their most recent win over Coastal Carolina, who was 7-4 rolling into that game. How does Navy kind of deal with this offense and defense, considering the fact Navy really doesn't have very many options on either side of the ball? They're kind of lost in the air. Tony, what's your take?
Well, I just money line at Army here. Real simple, about $1.45. They're a better team. I mean, to beat Coastal Carolina by 7, they beat Air Force by 20. That's a team that Navy lost to by 11.
Right.
I mean, Navy offensively is the New York Jets of college football.
Right.
Army's just got more options. Now, this game's in Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play this year. It's not in Philly this year.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes any difference. At the end of the day, the total's 28.5. I mean, they're not expecting Navy to score at all. And I know it's an armed forces deal, and I know it's like a Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas, old school USC, UCLA back in the day. Throw out the record books. It's a rivalry. USC, Notre Dame, doesn't make a difference if somebody's 10-1 and the other team's 1-10. It's that rivalry game. But you have to look at the stats, and Army's just flat out a better team. Just flat out a better team. I know Navy will do what they can, but they've tried to do what they can all year long offensively, and they just can't. Give me Army on this, minus 145 on the money line. Let's go ahead and take the points out of it. Say they score a touchdown and Navy shuts them down, and then Navy ends up managing to kick 2 field goals, ends up being a 7-6 win. I'd rather be laying the money line than the 2.5. Give me Army against Navy here, minus 145 on the money line. Griff, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about the New Mexico Bowl game. And New Mexico State is taking on Fresno State. New Mexico State, expertly coached by Jerry Kill. Their final 9 games of the season, 8-1 against the spread and straight up. They lost a 49-35 shootout to a very underrated and very good and very well-coached Liberty team in the Conference USA Championship last week. This is a team that went on the road 3 weeks ago and beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare 31-10. And Fresno State 3-3 their last 6 to end the season, including a 33-18 beatdown by a bad San Diego State team here. Fresno State catching 2.5, total 51.5. This game is played on the 18th of December. A look-ahead game here. Griff, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a really weird game for me, Tony. Right now, breaking this down, Fresno State, they have dropped 3 straight games against San Jose State, New Mexico, and San Diego State. And all 3 of those losses were by nearly 2 touchdowns. And New Mexico State coming into this game, they were on an absolute tear rolling into that conference title matchup against Liberty. They had won 8 straight games, and they really thrive on that ground game. It gets really weird, though, and I'm going to get to it in a second. Right now, they're currently 21st in the nation on the ground game, but that also comes at that quarterback spot. Right now, for New Mexico State, they have, and this is where bowl games get really trickery. It's because a lot of players are electing either into the NFL draft or transfer portals. Well, for New Mexico State right now, they have 3 quarterbacks. All 3 of them are all disclosed injured and not playing in this matchup as of right now. So kind of how do you base it off of that? Well, you kind of have to look at it like this. Fresno State right now, they live around their pass game with Mikey Keene. This kid's already passed for over 2,200 yards. He's got 21 touchdowns and only 9 picks. And New Mexico State, their biggest weakness on the defensive side is defending the pass game, where they are allowing over 250 yards in the air against per game. So how do you break this game down? Well, New Mexico State is going to have to thrive on that defensive side to win this ball game. And that is what I think this game is going to come down to. Because Fresno State has dropped 3 straight games, they're not really rolling into this with full momentum of steam. And then you've got New Mexico State, who was on an absolute tear and then just got beat down by a very, very good underrated Liberty team. I think this game comes into a very close matchup. I think it's going to be yard for yard. I don't think that anybody is going to have any type of drastic edge in this matchup. And I think they've got this total priced up a little high, Tony. So where I'm going with this game is I'm smacking the under 51.5 points in this matchup. Fresno State has not scored more than 20 points offensively in their last 3 games, which all resulted in losses. So again, Tony, my play going into this matchup is hitting that under at 51.5. Rolling into our last game, Tony.
Just remember, too, New Mexico State's defense held Auburn to 10 points. At Jordan-Hare, that's something that Alabama couldn't even do. FYI.
Right. Rolling into our last game on the NFL side of things. And we're rolling in. We've got the Tennessee Titans headed to Miami to play the Dolphins. The Dolphins are currently laying 13.5 points in this game, and we've got a total at 47. Got to say, the Dolphins right now undefeated at home. And what did they do to the Commanders, Tony? They completely lit them up. As we mentioned, they would do so. Tennessee right now, they're 0-6 on the road, struggling, which is understandable, especially because you've got Will Levis at that quarterback spot, the rookie out of Kentucky. And listen, I have very high hopes for this kid, and I think he's a very good quarterback. But right now, he's young. He's learning the game. He's learning the tempo and the speed of what it's like to play in the NFL. So road games are most significantly going to be pressureful for a rookie quarterback. Tony, week in, week out, Miami, anytime that they've had to deal with a team that's kind of been nonchalant, any tight matchup's always kind of a war, or they get beat down. But anybody that they kind of deal with that's nonchalant, they really motorboat them up and down the field, as you like to say. Tony, what's your thoughts rolling into this matchup?
Well, what we say last week on the show when you gave out Miami as a free play? What we say? What I say? What I jump in and say? Nobody's going to be able to stop Hill and Waddle. So what I do last Sunday, pulled out a can of whoop ass on the books. 4 minutes into the game, my prop play of the year in the NFL was Tyreek Hill touchdown pass -140. 4 minutes into the game, the prop was covered. He had 2.
Dynamite.
They're unstoppable. And their secondary can't stop Hill. They had trouble with Waddle. Now, let's talk about the Tennessee secondary. They gave Gordon Minshew, as we mentioned earlier, 312 yards and 2 TDs and no picks. Gordon Minshew, ladies and gentlemen, Tua's in the house. Hill in the house. Waddle, Mossert. Let's go down the list. And remember 3 weeks ago when Washington, was getting their butt whipped and Rivera got all pissed off and he fired his defensive coordinator? How's that working out for him? Well, what Tennessee do after the debacle that was the Colts game? They fired their special teams coordinator. That doesn't solve jack crap. You're in big trouble here. And you have a rookie quarterback that's going to be playing from behind. Forget the Derrick Henry slight because he's been out with concussion deal. But forget the power eye running game that, their head coach likes to run. You can't run that against Miami because you're going to be in catch-up mode. And you're in catch-up mode trying to score points. You're going to put a rookie quarterback there chucking it 45 times in this game to try and keep pace with Miami. And by the way, that's going to result in some turnovers as well because you got Ramsey running around back there who's an absolute death warrant to anybody start throwing into zone coverage that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. He's proven that already. But I don't like laying 13.5 points in the NFL. I sure as hell don't like laying 13.5 in a primetime game on Monday night. But give me the first half line. It's -7. Miami. they're going to be up on these guys by at least a touchdown in the first half. And by the way, Miami struggles against really good teams, but against weak sisters and teams with losing records, they take them out behind the woodshed and whoop their butt. Expect more of the same. I say Miami up by 10 at halftime if they show up for this game at all, and I think they will. Last weekend, folks, we went 3-1 in the NFL. We hit our prop play of the year on a separate card. We had a 7-unit play. Come to find out that both Griff and I both had top picks on the Rams. And we got it done. It was a little hairy there until the fourth quarter. There was a few texts going. There was a few texts going back and forth between Griff and I didn't know who he was taking. And we don't discuss what we're doing as far as our premium picks with each other. I didn't know till after the fact, and neither did Griff. But let me put it to you this way: I couldn't share those texts publicly because there was. But nonetheless, I'm looking, and I'm coming off a winning Sunday the week before as well. I've got a 7-unit totals play this week, probably on another 4-pack, 2 sides of total, and then a teaser. The only play I lost last week was a teaser because I teased the Steelers down. And, of course, Pickett goes out early, and I'm screwed. They never got off the bus. It's a 2-win team. Even with Pickett, they probably would have lost that game. They just didn't show up. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to this weekend. Card will be up on Thursday. Griff, what's up?
Yeah, Tony, I'm coming off a 2-0 sweep weekend in the NFL. I drilled my 7-unit. As mentioned, we both had the Rams. That was an absolute tee-off. And yeah, absolutely, there were definitely some text messages going on in that game towards the end of it where I was a little cautious, a little hesitant on what was going on in the game, but we got it done, and I'm very happy about that. Dating back to the prior week, I had Green Bay as my top play 7-unit. For Thanksgiving, that one also annihilated. So I am rolling right now on the NFL side of things. I actually do have a top pick in this Army-Navy game, so I didn't want to touch too much base on it. I have that play that will be going out on Saturday. And then I have it's a totals play. And then I have a flat play that goes out, I have a flat card that's going out on Sunday. 3 plays total, including my 7-unit best bet in the NFL slate. We are absolutely rolling right now in NFL. I want to say I'm 4-1 in my last 5, 8-4 in my last 12, plus $1,400, something like that. So we're absolutely rolling right now. And my top play on Sunday will be going off at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So you can check that out on my docs pile. Tony?
Well, I'm all in on the Chiefs swag, and you haven't said a word about my boys taking on Buffalo this week. Can I get a little love for my Chiefs? Minus a 2.5, maybe? What do you think? Come on. The Packers put us to bed the other night.
Chiefs were looking real iffy last week, man. Chiefs were looking real iffy last week. I was not sold on this team by any means.
Taylor Swift just moved into Travis Kelce's house. I mean, so he's gonna be nice and relaxed come Sunday.
You best believe. You're rocking the Chiefs there. You're looking great.
Yeah. Well, there we go, folks. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, leave your comments in the comments section. We got to filter out the F-bomb. There's no haters. You can't hate.
How could you?
You cannot hate on this show right now. And it's pissing them off. They're in the bushes. They want to jump out. They can't. They silently worship 70% against the spread, but they can't wait to applaud your failure and tell you how big of a lowest common denominator of human filth and snake oil salesman that Griff and I are. But we just keep shutting them up, baby. I'm loving it. We're having some fun on the show, folks.
Absolutely.
I'm being a little sarcastic, but not really. Nonetheless, we appreciate you tuning in. Until next week, for Griffin Murphy, I'm Tony George. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.